Hi, Jamie Cowen here to talk to you today about shouting fire in a crowded theater. Now, shouting fire in a crowded theater is a paraphrase originating from an early 20th century Supreme Court case, Schenck versus the United States. The case limited protections on speech under the First Amendment. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes posited it in his opinion that someone, quote, falsely shouting fire in a theater and causing a panic, quote, unquote, would not be protected under the First Amendment. The test is further refined by subsequent Supreme Court decisions is whether the speech would likely incite imminent lawless action, for example, a riot. So why am I talking about shouting fire in a crowded theater? Because the rhetoric of the current presidential election is so heated and reckless that it can lead to widespread violence in the United States. The question is whether followers of Yeshua will inflame passions or calm them. 25 years ago, Yitzhak Rabin, Israel's most popular prime minister since David Ben-Gurion, was gunned down by a religious nationalist. Rabin was the architect of the Oslo Peace Accords, whereby Palestinians were given sovereignty over the parts of the West Bank for the first time. Rallies by right-wing parties were held, opposing the plan and depicting Rabin as a traitor. Protesters chanted death to Rabin. Yigal Amir, a religious right-wing law student, viewed it was his religious duty to eliminate Rabin as a threat to the Jewish people, and he assassinated Rabin on November 4th, 1995, almost 25 years to the day of the upcoming election, U.S. election. Language like shouting fire in a crowded theater led to the Rabin assassination. Similar inflammatory language in the United States also can and has led to violence over the past few years. As I've shared before, the Bible says that there is the power of life and death in the tongue. According to the book of James, we can either bless or curse. So how shall we deal with the chaos of the current time? Yeshua provides an interesting example, but first let me digress with some background. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 says, quote, "Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters," unquote. In many ancient cultures, the waters of the deep represented chaos or disorder. In the creation story, God brought order out of the chaos of the waters when he created the earth. Similarly, later, Noah's flood also represented the spread of chaos over the earth. When the flood receded, God reordered the earth following the destruction sowed by the flood. Later again, the waters of the Red Sea blocked the Israelites from escaping from Egypt, but God parted the waters of chaos to provide a safe path for the Israelites to travel. Then chaos in the returning waters consumed the Egyptians. Now, let's fast forward to the New Testament. Yeshua and the disciples were in a boat on the Sea of Galilee. A storm arose, and the ship was almost overwhelmed. It's a picture of chaos arising again from the waters to destroy the Messiah and his followers. So how did Yeshua respond to the chaos about him? He called out, "Peace, be still," and the waters calmed. How do you like that? Peace, be still. Yeshua said earlier, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God." The United States is full of chaos. 1,000 people every day are succumbing to a lethal virus. The economy is reeling. Schools are opening and closing. There are protests, marches, and riots. A president is fueling the fires with constant tweeting. How are we to respond? One of the things I learned as a young believer is that garbage in, garbage out. If you listen to extremist rhetoric, you will be an extremist. You may not intend to, but you'll begin to think like them, talk like them, and in some cases, act like them. We need to be responsible for what we listen to and what we say. When we label others as extremists, we're fueling the fires of uncontrolled passions. Maybe we think these views are correct, or simply transmitting accurate information. But what's the motivation? Yeshua said, "A kingdom divided against itself will not stand." Are our words sowing division, or do they promote healing? Honestly, most TV cable networks, talk radio, and narrow interest internet news sites are fueling division. Rather than simply reporting the news, everything is twisted into a narrative. Every news story is accompanied by someone's commentary about the meaning, and repeating the narratives makes things worse. It's like shouting fire in a crowded theater. Do you want to be one of those stirring up strife or calming the waters? Proverbs says, "The lips of fools bring them strife, and their mouths invite a beating." Yeshua is the model peacemaker. He is the Prince of Peace. When we come to know him, we have peace with God and we experience personal peace in our lives. Doesn't it make sense then that we as his followers should spread peace wherever we go? How do we spread peace? The Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians, quote, "Through us spreads everywhere the fragrance of the knowledge of him," unquote. We've all experienced being around someone with an attractive perfume or cologne. Just being in their presence, it grabs our attention. That's what it was like when Yeshua walked the earth. The masses were drawn to him. He spoke of hope, a better way, a just and loving God, in contrast to the way God was often portrayed during that time. As a follower of Yeshua, we should be the same way. The prophet Micah said, "He has showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." During crises, God's people should shine with good works and encouraging words. Sure, it's tempting to respond to provocative statements, but Proverbs says the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Let's rise above the morass of the current climate. Let's stop shouting fire in a crowded theater. Rather, let us show by speech and behavior that there is a better way. Remember Yeshua's words of "peace be still" that calmed a raging storm. Maybe we can do the same. Thank you, and see you next time.